The squirrels peeped out of their holes at Bessie. The birds sang in the branches overhead. Thump came something all at once into the middle of the bed. Bessie jumped and upset the basket, and away it rolled down the hill. How Bessie laughed when she saw a big brown toad winking his bright eyes at her as if he would say, "No offense, I hope." Just then, Bessie heard a bell ringing loudly. She knew it was calling her home, but how could she leave her basket? She must look for that first. Waiting, 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 all at once sang a bird out of sight among the branches. Waiting, Bessie. "Sure enough," said Bessie, "perhaps I'm making dear mother or auntie wait, and they are so good to me. I'd better let the basket wait. Take care of it, Birdie, and don't jump on my flowers, Mr. Toad." So that's good for that. And again, greetings, and I'm glad some of you made it back to learn how to do the method that I described in the first video. First of all, I want to thank Drew, friend, for helping by playing the part so you could see this is just a demonstration of what it'll look like when you're doing this. And he was taking the part of the struggling reader, the one that needed help. And in this case, I'm taking the part of the teacher or the instructor, whatever you want to call yourself. And so before we move on to a couple of demonstrations, I want to make sure I have notes so I make sure not miss anything. These are the vital steps that are crucial to have the success that we expect when we're helping someone with struggling in their reading. You saw we were using clipboards with some enlarged material just for purposes of demonstration. But when you start this process with your first student or your first struggling reader, select a book that's at their grade level. In other words, if they're in fourth grade, and librarians can usually help you with this. Sometimes in the front pages or the back pages, it'll actually say in small print sometimes what grade level of difficulty the book is. So what you want to do is select one. If your struggling reader is in the fourth grade, use a fourth grade book. And at this time of the year, kids are getting ready to go back to school and start a new year, but don't be afraid to even use that as your reference point. If they're going into fifth grade soon, select a fifth grade book. There, through the challenge, they're going to come up to whatever you're reading to them. And potentially it could be a sixth or seventh grade book, but I don't recommend that. And I don't recommend trying to help or work with a child that is not at least in the second grade. Let them go through that early process of phonics or however that teacher is teaching them to read initially. I would not, I don't consider that, this is an intervention. This is not a basic teaching method to initially teach a child to read. So I would say by second grade, a lot of times teachers have said, this one is behind, this one's struggling a little bit. So that's fine. But first graders, pre-primary, primary, I don't recommend this process. This is an intervention for those that are struggling. So again, the book, select a book that is at their grade level. Not necessarily below or above, but right at where they're operating. If they're going into the fifth grade, use a fifth grade book. They will come up to meet this challenge. And so in the beginning, and I always warn everybody, in the beginning, if you're reading fluently, doesn't have to be fast, slow, medium, as long as it's fluent, as long as your finger would be flowing across the page, instead of the situation that you'll see repeatedly is the reader that's struggling, their eyes have learned, I will call it an improper method, and it's more of a stop, 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 back, stop, 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 back, back. If you sit across from them as they're reading, you'll see their eyes will go through that motion. Stop, 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 back. If you read fluently, if someone's observing your eyes from the opposite side of where you're seated, they'll see that your eyes flow smoothly across the page. And that's our goal, is to get them to that point. So one more time, the book, select a book that's at the grade level they should be. If it's an adult and you don't have any idea where they stopped improving, I would say just pick a high school reader and take it from there. Okay, as the instructor, as Drew and I were demonstrating, as the instructor, once you start an 8-week session with a struggling reader, it's crucial that you keep your finger moving, flowing in a smooth fashion, what we would call fluent. And what you need to do, you need to be the better encourager, the best encourager you've ever been in your life, because from their perspective, this is extremely difficult. You may have, for most of your life, been able to read smoothly and fluently, but that struggling reader never has. So when you first start this process, they're going to experience eye strain. This is going to be a strain altogether for them. Depending on the age and the child and whatnot, they'll need a lot of encouragement. And so just keep telling them, we're going to get there. You'll read as fluently as anybody else in your class. But for now, it's going to be hard. But the hard part is important, because as you struggle yourself and try day by day, week by week, you're going to start getting more and more words. And before we're finished with an 8-week session, you'll be reading more fluently than you ever have in your life. And so you'll want to encourage that reader. You may need a spouse or somebody to encourage you, but in this process, you need to remember. In fact, that while I'm on the thing of eye strain, doesn't happen very often, but sometimes they'll actually begin to experience pain because it's pulling so hard on those eye muscles. And so in which case I just say stop and tell them ahead of time. Look, if your eyes get to bothering you, tell me, and just stop. Because under normal circumstances, they're going to be reading for 5 minutes, resting for about 5 minutes, resting those eyes, reading for 5 minutes again, and resting those eye muscles for about at least 5 minutes. Let them tell you how their eyes are feeling. Don't ever want to get it to the point where they hurt. And I've seen that happen. But that's not common. But it is an exception that you'll need to pay attention to, because we don't want this to be a physically painful experience. You may have to modify, and instead of doing 5 minutes in the first week, you may have to back it down to 3. But communicate with that reader, and we want them to be pushed as hard as possible. We don't want any physical pain. Something that might be helpful, particularly if it's spouses that are doing this, if not, it doesn't matter if you have a third party that's interested, cares about the child and cares about their reading ability. From time to time, you might have them step around, like if it was Drew, step around the other side where they can watch the eyes. And sometimes it's hard to keep smaller children especially focused on that reading material. And if somebody's observing, a third party's observing from the other side, if their eyes are wandering all around the room, you might have them stop, alert whoever's the instructor, and then encourage the child, or if it's an adult, encourage them. The only way they're going to improve is by focusing, like in my case, where my finger is, and trying to get as many words as possible. Again, as an instructor, always remembering, probably for the first almost fully 3 weeks, 9 sessions, 8, somewhere in that range, they're going to start getting some words. They'll be surprised, and so will you, but it's a pleasant surprise. In the beginning, their eyes cannot move that fast. They have never moved fluently across a page like that. Their eyes are still, until those muscles, the muscle memory has changed, they're always going to do that stop, 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 back, stop, 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 back. So keep that in mind when you're encouraging them. And this 3 weeks can seem like an eternity when nobody feels like there's any change. But trust me, right around the end of that 3rd week, the beginning of the 4th, they're going to notice and you're going to notice. And once they get a breakthrough to where they're actually reading a word or two with you, and the student will hear the harmony or the cadence, and you will too. And it brings a smile to your face, because that's probably a child that never thought they'd be able to read as good as the other kids. And from there, from that point, it's just constant improvement. They are so encouraged that you won't have to nudge them to focus on your finger. They'll do it because they finally have hope that they'll be able to read as good as the other children. So let's see. You saw the headphones that Drew had on, and I recommend those noise canceling. I've never used the earbuds. They may work just as well. Probably whatever you have. You can buy inexpensive external headphones you can just plug them into your iPhone or cell phone, whatever you have. And basically with these, they're wireless, they're Bluetooth. And so I could call Drew, and he could connect these to Bluetooth, and then he could be listening to me on these. And then I would have my phone. And so as you're doing this reading, that would be one kind of an electronic process that you could use, where as the instructor, I would be speaking to him. I'd call Drew and be speaking into my own phone. He could use whatever he has, earbuds or headphones. I like these because they kind of cancel if there's any external noise that could be a disturbance or distracting for the reader. I like those noise canceling headphones, but you can use almost probably whatever you have. And another part of that is if it's Drew as the reader, I encourage getting the volume up as high as you can without causing any ear pain. It shouldn't be uncomfortable, but we still want it as loud as possible. And part of that process is they're not hearing their own mistakes as they try to read and try to keep up with your finger. They won't hear their own mistakes over and over, which just causes those to become more ingrained, the errors that they've probably maybe always been making since they started learning to read. Again, probably for the 5th time, encourage that reader to stay with your finger. They'll sometimes want to go up a line, they'll want to go back, their eyes will be all over the place. And so as much as you know, or just as a routine, just encourage them, even though they won't be able to keep up, and make that clear to them too. It'll come, but it won't be in the beginning. It'll be through a process. And so encourage them to always stay with your finger. And no matter what's happening, because from the first time to the 24th time in the 8th week, assuming you go the full 8 weeks, 3 times a week, they'll be struggling. And so it's through the struggle, though, that they become fluent readers. And that's our end game. If I didn't say it, yeah, I did, but I'll repeat it. When you're in your routines 3 times a week, and I recommend every other day, either a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or depending on your work schedules and that sort of thing, do the best you can. The main idea is you'll be challenging those eye muscles and the nerves and the nervous system that is behind it. You'll be challenging that, and it's tiring, and the muscles get tired. And so the whole idea between every other day is to let that reader, that struggling reader, let their eyes rest in a more normal situation, because this is very challenging to them. I'll say physically. So I've got that covered. I want to make sure not to underestimate this, but it's once you get started, you saw what it looked like with Drew and I. The only exception, I'm dominant right, so I sat to Drew's left. If you're dominant left, you probably want to switch places and use this hand, your left, if that's your dominant hand, to move your finger across the page. That might be the only exception to that. Again, 5 minutes rest, 5 minutes rest, and 5 minutes, and you're done for that session. Usually take you about 30 minutes, and they're actually getting 15 minutes of reading, actual reading time. Let's see if I forgot anything. Oh, I don't think so. I think that's it. So if you want to come around this way, Jim. So the only thing left that I want to accomplish now is to just give a demonstration. I surmise that there will be people out there who ask themselves, am I a good enough reader to be able to help somebody else? And so what I want to start with, I'm going to do a demonstration here with this material, and I'm going to show you, and I'm going to exaggerate what characteristics a struggling reader has, and then I'll demonstrate as well as I can more of a flowing reading process. And so you can watch my finger, and I'll demonstrate first of all the person. I don't care if they're 7 or 8 years old or 70 years old. They'll all have the same characteristic, and it's what I said: stop, 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 back, stop, 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 back. And what it looks like or sounds like is then and any turned out, then and any turned out the spools and the bags from. Again, I'm exaggerating, but depending on the individual, you will always see that pattern. Stop, and if you look from the other side and watch the eyes, it's stop, 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 back. Nobody, as far as I can tell, will ever read fluently until that, what would we call muscle memory, is erased and replaced with this flowing motion. To me, it doesn't seem possible, but I told you this was a result of prayers, and to me, it's the answer from the heart of a loving God who wants no child to cry themselves to sleep at night because they feel inferior. And so I don't understand how it works. I just know that it does work, and it always works if you follow those patterns that I outlined previously. So now I'm just you just watch my finger. I think we've concluded that you don't need to see the text and check on me and see how I'm doing. I'll tell you in advance that once you take up the challenge and do this and start working with students, you'll make a mistake every single time you read. I know, because I do, and I'm a pretty decent reader. And so that's not the focus. The focus is to keep moving and keep going across the page. So just for purposes of demonstration, you can just watch my finger. Then Aunt Annie turned out the spools and the bags from a nice large work basket and gave that to Bessie. You may have this for your own, she said, to fill with earth or flowers or anything you like. Oh, thank you, said Bessie, and she danced away through the garden. She slipped through the gate out into the field, and all starred with dandelions, down in the hollow by the brook, then up on the hillside out of sight among the shady trees. It's that simple. And again, don't expect to be perfect. You won't. You'll never make it. Just if you can read that fluently, and you watch yourself as you read, put your finger down on the page, and if it keeps moving fluently, flowing across the page, unlike that pattern of stop, stop, back, stop, 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 back, mispronouncing words, missing punctuation, all of that. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fast. All you need to be is smooth and fluent. So I think we're done, and God bless you, and be encouraged if you accept this mission. It'll be one of the most satisfying things you'll do in your life. And so get out there and get to it. Amen.